Salutations gamers, I'm the OgichiGame and welcome back to the animation tutorial series. Now today may be a slightly shorter episode than usual, but that's fine. Today I'm going to be talking about walking, particularly walking cycles. Now as usual, I went through I went back this morning and created an animation from scratch to explain walk cycles to you, using our good friend here, Rainbow Dash. Now, walk cycles can be a little difficult, or, well, at least for me, I find them to be rather difficult, because a proper walk cycle should include the whole body moving, or at least the majority of the body moving, not just the legs. Now, I generally avoid using walk cycles, just because, no, I use walk cycles, but I try not to have, like, scenes where characters are just walking from one side to another or something. I usually prefer a little bit more action than that, but there are quite a number of uses for a walk cycle, which is why I'm going to be going over them, because it's one of the quintessentials to an animation to have walk cycles, even if you don't use them that frequently. But you will eventually, and you always will, use them. So, we're going to be doing a 1-second walk cycle animation. Well, I've already done it. A 1-second walk cycle animation from a side angle view. Now, to make a proper cycle, let's first talk about making a cycle. So if I go into, let's say, the hind leg here. Oh, not that one. This one. Hind leg. Now, you'll notice that I've created a separate layer from the leg, which I titled as W, which is for W, which is for walking. You don't have to do that. I just did that. So now you might be noticing something. I said that this was a 1-second walk cycle animation. So why does it end at frame 23? Well, to make a proper cycle, what you do is, so you have the first frame of the cycle, and then you proceed through the entire motion, and then by the very end, the very last frame should be the same as your first frame, correct? Correct. However, to properly cycle through this motion, well, here, let me backtrack a little bit. So I'm going to remove this cycle. I'm going to turn it to linear. So generally what you would do is you would have this frame and you'd say, okay, well, you would create then, a middle frame where it would be about in the middle or whatnot, or perhaps you're breaking down into 4 or 6 or whatever. So let's just say, but by the very end, you need this first frame to be the exact same as what you want the last frame to be, correct? Like so. Okay, so these two frames would be the same, but it's not a cycle yet. To make it a cycle, now, if you were to make it a cycle using this frame, which is the same as your first, that would mean that there would be 2 frames where it's holding on this, which creates this sort of lag in the animation, I guess you could call it, where it's just this, and then it restarts. Where we don't want that. We want the cycle to be completely smooth. It continues without ever stopping. It just keeps going and going and going. And to do that, where you would go immediately to the frame just before it, which is this one. So this is the same as that frame. And so we go to the frame immediately before it. And we add a keyframe here. I've already done so, as you can see. After you have the keyframe, you will delete the last frame of the animation, then select these points right here, the one immediately before the last frame, and set it to cycle, and cycle back to the first frame of the animation cycle. And what that'll do is, immediately preceding this frame, the second to last frame, it will go back to the first frame and continue the animation smoothly without any hindrance. None. And it will continue that way. Now that you understand how to make a proper cycle, let's talk about some of the essential fundamentals of making a proper walk cycle. So, first and foremost, since we're working with a four-legged creature, generally speaking, if most people probably are going to be working with, humans with two legs, bipedal creatures, not quadpedal creatures. But if you are working with a quadpedal creature, what you want to make sure is that both legs move roughly the same distance, and we'll get into why you want them to move roughly the same distance in a moment. But as you can see here, they move roughly the same speed, roughly the same distance. See? Same speed, same distance. Both cycles are a 1 second cycle, and they both move about the same distance as one another. Okay? And that is very important that they do that. We'll get into why in a minute. Okay. Now that you have that, you also want to make... So, remember, the legs are not the only thing that move. The whole body moves. The whole body moves. There we go. I completely lost all my grammatic skills for a moment there. All my English skills. The whole body moves. So, with this, we have the legs moving, right? But, well, with this horse or pony, rather, you also have the rump, which is connected immediately to the hind leg, so obviously the rump is going to have to move with this. So as you can see here, we also have a cycle where the rump is moving with it. And since the rump is moving with it, it's important to remember that the tail is obviously connected to the rump, so we want the tail to move with the rump as well. So as you can see, it kind of moves around as they're walking. Last thing, now you probably want to do something a little more complex than what I did. I just put this entire top neck all the way to the ears and hair and all that business into a group layer called the head, and I just moved it using the transform layer tool and just added a animation cycle where the head just sort of bobs. Now you can do something quite a bit more complicated. You could add a lot more hair movement, obviously. You could, you should probably add some kind of blinking. Maybe they're talking. Who knows? Maybe their ear twitches every now and again. Something to give it more liveliness to it. Right? But this is just for tutorial purposes anyway. So that's another thing. The whole body is moving with the legs. See? And you'll notice, as the rump goes down, the head goes up, and then as the rump moves forward, the head goes down, and kind of like that. Ever so slightly. Now, there was another thing. Oh, right. As for the actual motion of the legs, let's look at the front leg for this. So let's go to cat. Here they are. Again, I made a second layer called W for walking for both of these. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's calf back. Calf front, fourth eye. There we go. These ones. Okay. So, alright, good. So, you want to start the cycle, or at least the way I did it anyway. I started the cycle where the leg was in the frontmost position. Okay? So here's the frontmost position where the leg is going to come down after you lift it up and pull it forward. Now, since this is a 1 second animation cycle, that means that the leg is going to go to its backmost position at 12 frames, which would be here. So this is the backmost position. Now, something I did is that since this is just the character standing normally, I said, okay, well, if that's the character standing normally, and 12 is the backmost position, and frame 1 is the frontmost position, I will make frame 6 this. I will make the front, both front-facing legs, the rump, the tail, and all of the head and hair and all this stuff up here, this standard stationary stance, I will make that frame 6. So that there is a middle ground. So now we have a middle keyframe. And that just helped things out a little bit. See? You can see there. And forward. Now, so again, frontmost frame, backmost frame, and you should have some kind of middle frame in between. It would help anyway. Then, where you go from there is, okay, well obviously, from frame 12 to 24, 24 is supposed to be the same frame as the first one, which is the frontmost frame. But we need a middle frame. This one we absolutely need a middle frame, because without the middle frame, it will just basically slide the foot back like that, see? It would just do the animation in reverse. It would just go, doot. That's all it is. We don't want that, because then they would be going absolutely nowhere. They would go forward, backward, just constantly. Maybe you want them to do that. Maybe they're like rocking back and forth with their legs or something. Who knows? You could do that, but we're trying to walk, not rock ourselves like a baby or something. So, the middle frame, which is essential, is where the leg is being lifted up. As you can see, so on frame 18 we have the leg being lifted up, like so. Now, you don't want to exaggerate the bend too much. Now, you could say if the character was doing, I don't know, like high leg running or something. I think that's how you say it. High leg, high knee, something like that. If you start walking around, you'll notice that you really don't bend your knees all that much when walking. Running, you bend them significantly more, but you still don't bend them all that much. You should notice that. Just stand up a minute, just walk around a little bit. You should notice that your knees really don't bend all that much. So we don't want to over-animate, obviously, and bend the knees a whole lot when the legs are not going to be bending that much. Just naturally, they just don't bend that much. You don't need to. So your legs just don't bend that much when walking. So we don't want to exaggerate that bend in the knee too much. You could make it a bit more than this. You could make it a bit more of a bend than this if you wanted. But try not to go too overboard with how much you bend. Obviously, you don't want the leg to go all the way up here or something when walking. Unless you're showing them into, like, a marching stance where, like, do, 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 do. I'm not sure. You obviously can't see me, but if you were doing, like, a march, where they're lifting their legs up and then smacking them down, up, down, up, down, up, down, a march, then you would kind of do that. But for the most part, the basic walk cycle, you don't bend the knees all that much. So it moves up. So with that keyframe in place, it goes from this position up to that position. Okay? Right. Now you may have to add frames in the middle here. Now this is just a calf I'm showing. No, that's... I was thinking about that one. But anyway, yeah. Now you might have to add something in here to help this motion along, depending. Now, I am obviously, my keyframes kind of move linearly. Anime Studio automatically adds in frames, not keyframes, but it adds in frames between these two frames to make motion smooth, automatically. But sometimes that doesn't always work when using that. I know in Flash, if you just have two keyframes, you have to select it to do that. I don't know if they've changed that, but I know you have to, like, select it to do that, because otherwise in Flash it'll just be doot, and then suddenly doot. So you have to, like, so if you're using Flash, you're going to have to actually go into the frames and select that they motion through each other that way, where Flash automatically adds in the frames between it as well to make the motion smooth. But you can do this in Flash as well. But remember, it's a machine, it only knows so much, and it's just trying to get mostly the shortest distance between those 2 points. So you might have to add in frames between there to make make the motion look the way you want it to. Anyway, moving on from that, the other part of the walk cycle that you're going to want to do is near the very end, you want to pop the foot a little bit. You want the heel to toe. a little bit. Kind of give the foot a pop, right? What I mean by that is, so if you don't have this frame here, I'll show you. If you don't have this frame at all, it just kind of puts itself down like that. It just kind of goes bop, just kind of puts itself down. With the frame in place, oh crap. With the frame in place, instead of just kind of setting itself down, it pops the foot and then sits down. So you can see that pop and then down. Just ever so slightly pops and down. And the point of that is to give the walk cycle a little bit more pizzazz, I guess you could say. It's something that you want to do, where you have it just a frame near before the end, where it's heel to toe, at least for a single frame, just to kind of give it a pop as the foot is placed down. So, you know, the foot moves forward and then pops and then down. Pops and then down. Okay, now that you understand these fundamental basics of creating a walk cycle, I hope I explained it well enough. Let's try to go back through just a second. So remember, don't exaggerate the bend too much. You want to pop the foot before it goes down. You want to make sure that the cycle is completely smooth by having by cycling the second to last frame instead of the last frame, and then deleting the last frame so that the last frame so that the frame immediately after the cycle is the first frame and the first frame from the cycle, so that it moves smoothly. Also make sure that you have a point where there is the backmost, the frontmost, a midsection on both ends, and make sure that you have the midsection between these 2 points here, where the leg is being lifted up. That way it doesn't just do a reverse of the animation you just did. Okay, I think that was everything. Oh, and of course, don't forget that you want to move the entire body with the animation. Everything should move most everything should move with the walk cycle. Okay, with all of that said, let's move on. There's something weird going on with that wing. I don't know why that wing's doing that. I'll have to fix that later. But anyway, actually, I think I could... Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that'll work. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself for a minute. Okay, now that we got all that in place, let's discuss actually making the character move from one side to another. This is where having the legs... Oh, right, that one other fundamental. Having the legs when having a quadrupedal creature walking, when the legs move with each other, they should traverse the same distance roughly. Like so. As you can see, they should traverse the same distance. And this is where that comes into play. So, something that people seem to forget is, they say, okay, well, I have my walking animation, right? So I'll just take the whole of it right here, and I'll just say, okay, I want you here, and then 2 seconds, I want you over there. And then they just like play it out, and they look like this, right? Which makes no sense. Makes no sense. So I'll show you again. Like, it makes no sense, right? How are they moving that quickly when their legs are moving that quickly? It doesn't make any sense. So if I get rid of those, I'll show you roughly what you're supposed to do. Okay, so at the first frame. Now, they are going to move continuously, yes, but there's something to remember. So we're going to do this in the 12 intervals. So it goes to the backmost frame after 12 frames, okay? So let's see. Let's use layer 1 to give us a hand, actually. We're going to create something to give us a hand. Okay. So let's just change the color of this to black. Simple enough. Okay, now you're probably wondering, what the heck am I doing? And it's a fair question. Ah, right, okay. So, let's take this. We're going to move it right here, right under the foot. Okay? Like, alright, where are you going with this? So we're going to take the side, and at 12 frames, you'll see the leg has moved back, right? We're going to move it forward onto the black. Okay? Are you starting to see what I'm getting at here? The legs... you see, if you walk around, you'll notice, when you're walking, it is the legs which propel you forward, right? So obviously the legs are not going to be sliding forward more than the rest of you is. The legs will be moving. The legs will be moving your body. The legs move your body. So as you can see here, like so, the leg has pushed her forward. Okay. Like so. Okay, now at this point, this other foot has already come down. Now we're going to move this once again. We're going to go into layer 1. Move this thing onto here. Alright. Oopsie daisy, I don't want to move it with that. I want to move it to that. There we go. Move it right there. Back to side. And then this thing moves back all the way to frame 24. We're going to move forward. Like so. Are you seeing how this is moving? Okay, so if we make this invisible, you should start to notice. Alright. Like that. Alright, are you seeing what I'm talking about here? About roughly that distance. Now that I have a rough estimate about the distance that I think it should traverse, so let's say 24. Okay, 36. It should be about that distance. 48. That distance. Now you could just use the black box thing. In fact, that would be more effective to just use that. You should start to notice we're walking with the feet, like so. Right? We're not sliding forward. We're walking with the feet. And then now we're into a moonwalk. But as you can see, this is how the motion should be. It should move with the legs. With them. Not just being kind of an accessory to the movement, actually causing the motion. Like that. Do 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 do. Okay, so I hope that explains things well. So I'm going to go back. So I'm just going to go back over everything real fast. So again, do not exaggerate the bend. Do not exaggerate the bends in the knee. Make sure that if you're using make sure that when working with a quadrupedal creature, that the legs, front and back, move roughly the same distance as each other in the animation cycle. Make sure that the entire body is moving with the walk cycle to make things more animated and lively. And if I'm forgetting anything, I can't remember it. Oh, right. Make sure you have a backmost frame and a backmost frame and a frontmost frame for the walk cycle. And also remember that to create a proper cycle, that you want to have a keyframe on the frame before the last, and the last frame should be the same as the first frame. So then after you create a keyframe before the last frame, delete the last frame and then cycle the frame before the last. That way that it will cycle immediately back to the first frame and look like a flawless cycle. And you can look back in the video to see what I'm talking about if you've forgotten what that means. Okay, good. I think that's everything. That's how to do a walk, the basic walk. And of course, using all these techniques, you could make any kind of walk cycle you could make a walk cycle for pretty much any creature or anything really, using these basic fundamental rules. And also, something else. I just forgot it. I had it, I forgot it. Oh, well, I'm sure it probably wasn't important anyway. Anyway, so, I think that's everything. If you like this episode, make sure to hit like on it. Otherwise, I'll see all of you in the next one. Also, remember to leave any questions or comments for me in the comment section below. Otherwise, bye-bye!